Hello, everybody. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Pete Panito. Hopefully, all can hear me. I did get a few responses saying, yes, you can hear me. So I'm assuming everybody can hear me. Um, I'm with First Northern Credit Union's business development area, and we have First Northern's Zachary Taylor presenting today's webinar, Retirement Planning Basics. This presentation is part of our monthly financial wellness program here at First Northern. Throughout the webinar, if you have any questions, please ask them in the chat box, or you can raise your hand, or in the question area, it comes straight to Zachary and myself, and we're going to try and address all questions that come in during the presentation. If we can't get to them all, we will get to them all by the end of the presentation, okay? And we appreciate you joining us today. And with that, I'm going to turn the microphone over to Mr. Zachary Taylor. Zachary.
All right. Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction there, Pete. As you said, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I absolutely love this topic as it affects just about everyone, anyone that's planning to retire. So we'll go ahead and jump right to this one. I'll do a few intro points on there, and then we'll dive right in, okay? So while most Americans are eligible for Social Security retirement benefits, they are only meant to supplement what you've already saved. You can ensure that your lifestyle doesn't suffer when you stop working by taking an active role in your retirement planning, and I highly recommend that everybody does. An active role is the best role on that one. And to be perfectly honest, in most cases, Social Security simply just will not be enough to live comfortably for many reasons, a few of which I will cover in the next slide. So with that being said, I hope everyone has their first, second, maybe third cup of coffee already ready, or a morning shake, whatever gets you ready. And we're going to go ahead and dive right in. So let's take a look at the challenges to retirement planning. Now, when planning for retirement, it's always a good idea to consider the various challenges that can affect the amount you need to save to live comfortably, such as more years spent not working. So over time, the average lifespan has increased more than the average retirement age, meaning that retirement savings need to cover expenses for a longer period of time. Now, because women on average live longer than men, they especially need to be concerned with the possibility of running out of retirement savings. Now, this is usually where I do a little aside, and this does not have to do with retirement planning. It's just a side note that I love to tell everyone right now at this point, and that is if you are married or in a long-term relationship, definitely sit down with your partner and discuss retirement goals, what you're both trying to accomplish when you do retire. If that means moving to another state, wonderful, discuss that. But the worst thing to see is that if one partner were to pass before the other, they weren't on the same page and don't know where funds need to be allocated to reach the goals that you were going for. So sorry about that. That's just a little aside that I love to throw out for everyone. Think about that if you are married, plan to be married by the time you're retiring, or are in a long-term relationship, anything like that. So right back into the challenges, increasing medical costs. Now, healthcare expenses are rising rapidly, and most people need care as they age. That's completely common and normal. So keep in mind that Medicare does not cover everything. Many seniors do pay several hundreds of dollars out of their own pocket for prescriptions and co-payments on a monthly basis. So be aware of that. 2 tips that I have for that one. Always make sure that you ask if there's a generic that would work if you're comfortable with taking that. Most of them are the exact same on there other than a name. So that's tip number 1. Tip number 2, a lot of people don't know about this one, but if you were to call the manufacturer of the drug that you need, they actually have coupons that they give out directly from the manufacturer that you can stack on top of retail coupons. So if you're picking up from CVS, Walgreens, Walmart, wherever you get your prescriptions, any manufacturer coupons you get will stack on top of the retail, which can save you potentially hundreds of dollars on that. So those are my tips as far as medical costs to look out for. Next is rising inflation. So one of the most significant threats to retirement savings is inflation. Over time, the value of most goods and services increases. Meanwhile, your dollars stay about the same, and that's where you get the inflation difference on there. Your money won't stretch as far as it used to. So I would like to take a moment to just hear some other challenges that you guys feel we may be faced when looking at retirement. So as Pete mentioned in the beginning, on the GoToWebinar software itself, at the very bottom, there's a spot called chat. This all comes to us privately, so you don't have to worry about anything you type in there. Go ahead and give me a couple challenges, one or two if you can on there. I just want to get a feel for what people are kind of worried about when it comes to retirement planning so that I can try to touch on that throughout the seminar. I'm going to go ahead and take a drink, let a couple of those come in, and then I'll discuss that and we'll move on. Perfect. Seeing some good stuff coming in there. I'll address a few of those here in just a moment. Okay. Pete, if you just want to read a couple of pick three good ones on there and we'll touch that and then move along.
Sure. And it seems like the questions or the statements are all in the same on the same topic of moving. The cost of moving with new taxes. Will my equity be enough to cover the move? And cost of living. Will my cost of living change in a new state?
Okay. Yeah. So definitely, that is definitely a big challenge to consider. And that's pretty much the entire goal of retirement planning as well is, you want to figure out if you're going to stay in the same area, if you're going to downsize to a smaller home, anything like that. Definitely the best way that you can tackle that is to plan ahead of time. So take a look at tax differences in the state that you're moving to if you plan to move. Take a look at, are you gaining more equity right now in the home, or would it be a smart decision to downgrade before you even, not downgrade, downsize, I'm sorry, it's still probably the same on there, but is it a good idea to go ahead and do that before you actually retire? So definitely plan ahead of time, take a look at that, and yeah, that's my tip for trying to tackle that challenge is just have an idea of where you're going so that you can properly adjust your savings goals to compensate. If taxes are higher, great. If they're lower in the state you're moving to, even better. We can actually plan that in there, and there's a ton of great tools that will help you check taxes online for the areas that you're moving. So with that, let's go ahead and keep it moving forward. How much will you actually need to retire? So getting a realistic figure for how much you need to save for retirement does require a little bit of legwork. Luckily, as I mentioned, there are several hundreds of thousands, probably, different calculators that you can find online that are readily available that can help you figure it out. So you can and definitely should consult with a financial advisor, make sure they're licensed because you can consider yourself a financial advisor even if you're not licensed. So definitely make sure that they are licensed when you are talking to them. The reason that I mention that you should consult a financial advisor is retirement planning is completely personalized to the individual. So I'm going over some basics of everything that you can keep an eye out for and look at. However, your goals are going to be different than my goals, different than your neighbor's goals, so it's going to be very personalized. But things to consider when you are taking a look at how much you'll need, your cost. So a general rule of thumb is that retirees' expenses are 70 to 80% of what they were before retirement. However, as I said, that will vary from person to person as well. So your expenses may be more or they may be less. So just think about how you expect your expenses to change when you retire. Now, I went ahead and I just wrote down one or two little things that I thought of when I was looking at mine. So increases, I said perhaps luxury purchases. So I'm going to treat myself when I retire to perhaps a fancier car, something I can enjoy driving around a little bit more than my day-to-day commuter right now. So that would be an increase. We already covered medical costs. That definitely has potential to be an increase on your average cost. Now, looking at decreases, I said gas costs just because I most likely will not be driving every single day into an office anymore. So that's something that could go down. My property taxes could go down. They have some special rates sometimes that you can talk to get locked in on a senior property tax, stuff like that. So those were two options that I came up with, but definitely, again, take a look at what you think, if yours is going to go up, go down, if you're okay with a lower cost of living, if you think it's going to go up, just factor that in. So next would be length of retirement. We kind of already touched on that, but the length of your retirement is your age of death minus your age of retirement. Now, obviously, your age of death is unknown ahead of time, but you can use a life expectancy calculator to estimate that. I do see some questions coming in there. I will try to touch on a few of those as I can towards the end. It's not a part of what we have going on here, but I'll definitely touch on it at the end there, and then we can get you some more resources to look at on there as we get going as well. So good questions. Please keep them coming in. I love to see them. So next, we're actually going to talk about my absolute favorite topic when it comes to anything financial goal-wise, and that is creating a budget. So successful retirement planning requires setting aside money on a regular basis. Realistically, to be able to save, your expenses do need to be less than your income. So, that difference is going to be what we can play with, what we can save, what we can go there. Of course, that is until we finally learn how to plant that money tree everyone's talking about in the backyard. Okay, sorry, we'll go right back in here. But if you do figure out how to plant that tree, let me know. So are you currently spending less than what you're earning? To figure it out, we can take a look at the budget worksheet, which is in the handout on page 3. If you are looking for the handout, again, that's on the GoToWebinar as well under handouts. I put it up there. You can download it completely free. Pull it out there. The page that I'm talking about is page 3. So if you're not sure what some of your expenses are, just use your best guess for now. By tracking your expenses for a few months, you can create a more accurate budget in the future. And I always recommend, if you are keeping a budget for anything, adjust it at least quarterly throughout a year, because things do change. If you are already on a fixed income, anything like that, then you don't have to adjust it as often as you would if it were variable. But definitely take a look and keep it as up to date as you can. That's the biggest part of budgeting, is to keep it accurate. So once you have completed your budget, you should total up your expenses and then subtract them from your net income. If your expenses are less than your income, great. If not, look over the worksheet and think about some changes you can make to improve your cash flow. So as with any budget, just be honest. That's the biggest part of a budget. You can't get an accurate depiction of how you're spending money if you're not actually putting in honestly what you're spending. So if you get a coffee daily, that could be upwards of $5 a day, 5 days a week. If you're looking at Monday through Friday, that's $25 a week, or about $100 a month, et cetera, et cetera. So just be honest with how you're spending money. Make sure you take a look at it. If it's a little bag of Skittles here, a Twix or something there, that does add up if you're doing it every single day. So just be aware of what you're spending. No one's going to see this other than yourself. So it does give you an idea of where you can cut if absolutely necessary. So definitely keep that in mind. And that's the biggest part about budgeting. All right, let's take a look at, in my opinion, one of the most important parts of retirement, and that is the types of retirement accounts. So there are 2 basic types of employer-sponsored retirement plans. That is the defined benefit plan, in which a certain level of benefits is promised, and it is the employer's responsibility to fund it. And then there's the defined contribution plan, in which the employee makes defined contributions and there is no guaranteed payout. Employers generally let the employees determine how much they want to contribute per paycheck, and some even match all or part of the employee's contributions. Now, today, the defined contribution plans are much more common than the defined benefit plans. So a look at that would be the 401k and 403b, which are examples of the defined contribution plan. The money that you contribute is deducted from your paycheck pre-tax, so that's a big distinction there, meaning you don't have to pay state or federal income taxes on it. While your money is invested in the plan, you don't have to pay taxes on the earnings either. So keep that in mind. You only pay taxes on the withdrawals that you make, and that's when you're talking about that one. So one major item that I always like to point out for people is that your employer's match does not count towards your yearly cap that can be put into the pre-tax on the retirement account. So for example, in 2020, the max contribution for 401k was $19,500. As I said, this does not count the employer, so you can put in the maximum amount, And anything that they're matching is icing on the proverbial retirement cake. So definitely keep that in mind when people are talking about the percentages and whatnot on there. If you max out, great. You don't account for what the employer is putting in as towards that max, okay? So next, let's take a look at IRAs, also known as individual retirement accounts. So these accounts are not tied to your employer. You can open one at a variety of different financial institutions, such as we have some at First Northern Credit Union. Any other bank is most likely going to have them, mutual fund companies, et cetera, et cetera. If it's a financial institution, they usually have IRA packages that you can take a look at. In order to contribute to an IRA, you or your spouse must have earned income. The two most common types of IRAs are the traditional IRA and the Roth IRA. I'm going to go through a little bit of what the difference is on there. So like with 401ks and 403bs, you do not have to pay income taxes on the contributions made to or in plan earnings of a traditional IRA, only on the withdrawals. So that's the big difference between traditional and Roth. So with Roth, you do have to pay taxes on the contributions that you make. However, the earnings grow tax-free in the account, and you do not have to pay taxes on the qualified withdrawals. Traditional is pre-tax, Roth, you pay ahead of time on there. So I'm going to say again that you would definitely want to discuss with a licensed financial advisor decision-making of what you have going on there. I am not a licensed financial advisor in Illinois, but I would recommend that you definitely, it's not a bad idea to have a traditional and a Roth, even if some years you only contribute to one or none. If you just only contribute to your employer, that's fine as well. But it doesn't hurt to have a traditional and a Roth there if you do want to take advantage of what they have on there. And I say that because Roths, as I said, are taxed and traditional are pre-tax, meaning that some years you can actually really, really beat inflation by putting more money into a Roth versus a traditional. So definitely recommend it. Definitely recommend having them both on there and working hand in hand with your financial advisor if you have one, or definitely researching yourself if you want to be very hands-on as well. There's definitely benefits to both of them on there. Now, one downside of the employer sponsor, the original one that we talked about on there, is that the investment options are typically limited, in contrast with an IRA, which you can invest in any way that you really want to on there. You also do not have to worry about what to do with your IRA when you leave your job. On the other hand, you don't have the benefit of automatic payroll deduction or matching employer funds, and the contribution limits are higher for employer-sponsored plans than IRAs. You can contribute to both at the same time, but contributions to a traditional IRA are not deductible if you are covered by a retirement plan at your work and your income is above a certain level. So with any retirement plan, there's going to be maximums, there's going to be limits on there, and that's dependent on, you know, what other options you already have going, how much money you make. Definitely take a look at what you're trying to do on there. But as I said, it doesn't hurt you to have more than one type of retirement account on there. Now, the last one that we're going to talk about on there is if you're self-employed. You can still contribute to a traditional or Roth IRA, but there are also retirement plans specifically for the self-employed and small business owners or employees, such as there's the Simplified Employee Pension, also known as SEP plan. There's the Savings Incentive Match Plan for employees, also known as the Simple Plan. And then there's solo 401k options on there as well. So if you are self-employed, definitely take a look at that. There's still plenty of retirement plans for you. Now let's jump into exactly what's going on inside of these retirement plans. So let's take a look at the types of investments that tend to be inside of those, okay? There are three basic types of investment classes where you can put your retirement savings. So when you're looking at your retirement plan, if you already have one, what you're going to see in there is it'll show usually for most of them a circle, and it'll show kind of how your investment portfolio is laid out, what you're bulk in, percentage-wise of what you're invested in. This is what it's talking about. So first, we would look at stocks. Sorry, one question came in on there. Could you repeat the average medical expense budget number? So I didn't actually talk about the average medical expense budget on there. However, what I was talking about when I was talking about yearly caps was the yearly cap for a 401k in 2020 was 19,500. I can get you some more information as far as medical expenses. Definitely, I would love to send you some more material at the end there. If you just want to put your email into the chat, I can definitely get you that towards the end. Okay, sorry about that. So jumping right back into types of investments. First, you would look at stocks. So a share of stock represents a percentage of ownership in a corporation. You can make money from receiving dividend payments and from selling the stock for more than you bought it for. So historically, stocks have provided the greatest chance for return on long term. However, there are no guarantees with a stock. One day your stock may be worth more than what you paid for it, the next day less. Now, that's nothing to panic about, because when we look at retirement plans, this is a very long-term investment that you're looking at, so it's going to shift up and down. The biggest thing is year over year, you want to make sure that it is moving upwards, but you wouldn't want to look at a retirement account day to day. That's just going to stress you out, and that's not worth the stress on there. One other side note that I want to put in when we're talking about retirement accounts is that it's okay to be a little bit more risky earlier on when you have a lot more time to adjust and recoup from any losses. So if you're riskier in your 20s or 30s when you're first starting out with a career and putting away for retirement, that's okay. You'll notice that in most employer-sponsored plans, they're already auto-balanced to do that. They'll be a little bit more risky at the beginning, and then they'll cater down towards a safer bet as you're getting closer to the year of retirement. And when I say that, I'm talking about when you look at sponsored employer ones, you'll see XYZ and then the year that you're trying to retire. So like Vanguard 2055, something like that. That's what I'm talking about when I'm saying they're auto-balanced on risk management on there. Also, if you're not happy with the way that it is balanced, you can talk to the company that it's through, or just click an auto rebalance button that most sites have on there as well, and it will readjust how you're invested as well there. So again, I guess my biggest side note on that is it's okay to be completely hands-on. If you're not liking what you're seeing in your retirement account, it's your account. So it's okay for you to decide how you want that money invested. Okay, sorry about that. That was a little side note. We'll jump back in. So after stocks, we're going to look at bonds. A bond is a loan to a company or government with you, the bondholder, as the lender. Now, generally, you receive the principal called the par value at maturity of the bond and interest periodically while you are holding the bond. Depending on the market, you may purchase a bond below, at, or above its par value. In general, bonds are between stocks and cash equivalents in regards to risk and return, and cash equivalents I'm going to talk about right now. So cash equivalents, when I say that, I'm talking about assets that can be readily converted into cash, also known as liquidity, so they're more liquid, such as savings and checkings accounts, certificates of deposit, what count as that, money market deposit accounts, and U.S. Treasury bills. So these all tend to be very low risk, so there's little or no danger that you will lose the money deposit. But as a result, they also, on average, provide the lowest return. So when I was talking about, when it was talking about risk versus non-risk, as you get closer to retirement, it's usually going to auto shift into more cash equivalent so that you can get your money when you go to retire. But early on, it's going to start out with more in the stock-based area on there. But if you're not happy with what you're seeing in there, at any time you can talk to the company, or you can manually readjust your what you're doing on that. Okay. So next, let's talk about, instead of picking several investments individually, a lot of people will choose to invest their retirement savings into what's known as a mutual fund. A mutual fund, they take money from several investors. They pool it together to buy different stocks, bonds, and or cash equivalents for you, kind of as a package. There's a wide variety of mutual funds available with different investment compositions and goals. So kind of have in mind what you're trying to do on there, and then you can kind of base it on there. A side note, because I love side notes, the ever growing in popularity is also ETFs, which are known as exchange traded funds. So these are similar to mutuals as they are diversified, but also tend to have a much, much lower fee schedule, fees associated with it, and they track the performance of specified indexes. So when I say they have a lower fee, they tend to be as low as 1/10 the price of an average mutual fund. We're not going to dive too deep into that because we're just covering basics today, but I always encourage everyone to take a look at the retirement funds, become familiar with what you're invested in, and then to also take a look at the fees that you're paying on that account. Now, I'm not saying that the lowest fee is going to be the best option for you. The fees usually are associated with how active the management team on those funds are, but that's not always the case. So if you are hands-on, take a look at it, not a problem at all. If you feel the fee is too high, you can always switch it into something else. And I highly recommend to everyone, I know I'm pushing that a lot in this, but to be hands-on and know where your money is, because it's your retirement. At the end of the day, you could say, yes, I put away enough money to do this, but it's not making more money so I can live comfortably. You know, it's a two-edged sword. The more you put away, usually that gives you a higher amount on there. But if you're not actively looking at it, you can't really be as upset that you're not making as much profit as you would like on there. Question came through, what is the recommended net worth of someone that will retire in a year to live comfortably at upper middle class? So I'll touch on that real quick before I move on, because that is a good question. Again, that is very person to person dependent on there. So when you say middle class, that actually is quite a range if you're going just by definition. So in the United States, middle class is usually considered an average salary of $35,000 all the way up to $450,000 yearly. So that is a very, very big gap. So what I would say on that is that you would definitely want to talk to a licensed financial advisor, tell them how you're living currently, and if you want to live in a little bit higher cost of living, they would help you find the goal for that. If I were to just throw out a number, the most overused one in any retirement class or anything like that is $1 million. But essentially, with the way that the society is moving nowadays, $1 million isn't really going to get you as far as you would think it would during retirement. So a good number to aim for is probably about $1.5 million to $2 million in your retirement, as long as you're trying to live on about a $50,000 to $80,000 a year average salary on there. Of course, if you want to live higher, you would need more saved on there. But if we're just talking about retirement accounts, a good number to aim for is anything over $1 million, and then adjust it as you need to. Again, there's a lot of calculators on there that will break it down for you, depending on how you're pulling it out and what schedule you're using to show equivalency to certain salaries. So there's no set answer on that one, is I guess what I'm trying to say on that. It's very personal. You definitely want to talk to a licensed financial advisor on there, or use a calculator online to get a feel for how you want to live on that one. So I hope that answered that question. I can touch on it a little bit later. The numbers that I'm stating, yes. So growth, definitely. After taxes, because there are different taxes that come along with it, depending on which, as I said, retirement account. So Roth, you already pay the taxes before you put it in there. Traditional and employer-based, you pay taxes when you withdraw. And you have to be very careful that you do withdraw your retirement account in time. And by that, I mean there are laws as far as the time period that you have to pull out your entire retirement savings from the plan without getting insane taxes on there. So if you wait too long, they can tax quite a bit out of that money. So for those exact numbers as far as how long you have, again, you would have to individually research your own account or check your state on that one. So the numbers I'm talking about are gross because, like I said, some accounts are already taxed and some aren't. So just keep that in mind on there. Okay, so we talked about mutual funds. We talked about exchange traded funds. Those are the pooled together funds that kind of already do most of the legwork for you. As mentioned previously, for IRAs, your investment choices are virtually limitless. So you can put it into all stocks if you want to. You can put it all into whatever you find on there that you want to invest in. You have that choice when you're looking at individual retirement accounts. Your options will be limited by your employer for 401k and 403b, so they select packages that they feel are appropriate, and that's where you get to invest as far as that. So as a general rule, you should invest more aggressively the further out from retirement. We kind of already talked about that. It means focusing on investments that have the potential for a much larger return, even if they're a little bit riskier, because you have more time to recoup a loss if something were to happen on that. But as you close in on retirement, you definitely want to play a little bit safer so you have that money and don't take the chance of losing a lot of it right before you retire. So regardless of how far you are from retirement, it is important to check the diversity of your portfolio. I know a lot of people preach that don't put all your eggs into one basket. Now, if you have some secret magical formula where you know if I put all of it into this, it's going to bring me 10+%, please shoot me an email and let me know what you're thinking on that one. But no, so it's just good to, not put everything into one basket, because if that certain sector does tank, you don't want it to pull down your entire portfolio. So definitely consult with your financial advisor again on that one. And then that covers the basics. So the only other thing I'm going to say as far as that is, if you are not currently saving for retirement or not saving as much as you would like to, don't wait. It could start as simple as just putting $20 away every time you get paid and bring it up as much as you can. But anything is obviously more than nothing when it comes to savings. The earlier that you start your savings, the more time it has to grow. So let's say you started investing $200 per month now in a vehicle that averages 5% a year. In 30 years, you would have about $160,000 on there. Whereas if you were to wait only 5 years longer to start, you would only have about $114,000. So you can see that's $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 you're leaving on the table potentially just by waiting to start. Now, as I said with budgeting, as you get a more accurate account of what money is coming in, what money is going out, where you can cut it, you can always shift how much you're putting into your retirement packages on there. I know personally, if I were to make a change in the percentage of what I'm contributing to my employer one on there, it only takes usually 2 pay periods for it to adjust. So if I were to change from, say, 8% and I wanted to move it up to 10%, I can do that at any time, and it only takes the 2 pay periods for it to take effect. So as you see what's coming in, what's going out, don't be afraid to be hands-on and adjust that number as you need to. There's usually, I know personally for us, there's no fees associated with readjusting. So check with yours, but it's not common for there to be fees to change your percentage on that. So I guess I'll leave you on, we'll go to questions afterwards, but as far as the presentation, just save what you comfortably can. And most of all, do not be afraid to be hands-on and use the calculators and all the free resources that are out there. So with that, this comes to an end. I'm going to let Pete do a few final words and check and see if any additional questions that he wasn't able to get into, and I'll try to touch on them. Now, again, if I can't dive deep enough into it, I'll give you an overview answer, and then I'll ask for your email, and I can send you some resources, because this is such a great topic. It affects everyone on there, and I want you to have the best information that you can. So I will send you as many resources as I can find. And then I highly recommend that you do talk to a licensed financial advisor. Make sure that you vet them, because they're going to be in charge of potentially your entire retirement. I can't speak on what the average cost is on having a financial advisor. Everyone's schedule charges are a little bit different on there. But don't be afraid to check with more than one financial advisor. You don't have to go to the first one that you go to. If they're trying to take far more than 1% of your entire investment, you have to weigh if that's worth it or not. And don't be afraid, and don't feel like you're stuck with one advisor, because you're not. So that's my big tips on that one. Pete, did we have anything else that came in that I need to touch on?
Zachary, today it looks like you've addressed every question that came in. Yeah, I don't see any more questions coming in. That was awesome. So I'll let you have the final word as I wait just a few more seconds to see if anything else comes in, let me see. Well, there is one that just came in. Can you comment on how to evaluate whether you should take Social Security benefits early or not? Do you have any general thoughts on that?
So it would come down to, again, your personal situation of what's going on there and if there's fees associated with taking them early. If you need the money, then of course I'm going to tell you take the money now and deal with the fees if you need to. If you need it now, it's better not to fall on hard times because of money that you could potentially get. However, if you don't need the money, it's better to factor it in and have it where you're able to pull it throughout your entire retirement. You don't want to run out of it before you're even retired. Touching on another question that came in kind of in the same concept of that, whether it's better to take a severance package at 55 or wait until 57 to have a larger pension. I would say personally, if you can hang on for the 2 more years, I know it's very personal and you make the choice that you need to, but if you can hang on for the full pension, then that would be the best option in my opinion. Again, I can't see everyone's finances right now, and which is why I highly recommend that you find a financial advisor that's licensed, that you do trust, and then you can go through all of that and they'll steer you in the best way, because the more money they make for you, the more money they make. So definitely, I hope those answers touched on it well enough that you get a basic concept. As I said, I can't dive in too deep without seeing exactly what's going on there. I see Pete did put my email address in the chat box. Feel free to shoot me an email with any additional questions. I'll do the best that I can to get back to you quickly with some resources on that. As far as final words, I want to thank all of you again for taking a little bit of time out of the day to come hang out with me. As I said, I'm passionate about this topic, so I really hope that came across for all of you. As far as that, I'm going to wish you the best of health, wealth, and positivity. We need all of those during these times for sure. Yeah, so as far as that, I hope you walk away with a little bit more information than you came in with, or at least got a great refresher on stuff you may have already known. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day. And I look forward to seeing some emails if there are some additional questions. I have no problem sending out some additional information for you. I'm going to put up this next slide. This is Balance. It's a free financial education and counseling service that we work directly with. They have some great calculators on there for you. They have some great little worksheets as well that you can print off. Everything on there is completely free. So take advantage of that as well if you just want to scan through that and check out some other things on there. And again, thank you all so much for joining us. It really is wonderful. I love answering questions and dealing with everyone. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Zachary. Everybody have a great afternoon. Bye-bye.